Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday. Finally made it out here to the weekend. Going to be nice and cool out here over the next couple days in California. It is about 10:46 a.m. California time, August 23rd, 2024 is the date. Latest activity on the globe here shows a 3.1 down in the South America area. Let's see what's going on here. The West Coast getting a little bit of activity here overnight and this morning, more specifically out here around Nevada and the Hawthorne, Nevada area. Seen a little bit of earthquake swarming kicking up out here. Looks like we got a largest in this event, a 4.3. Now notice the sequences of earthquakes out here didn't really start off with a 4.3 and then followed by many aftershocks. No, this is a kind of a mixed bag of earthquake activity in terms of magnitudes, with really no main quake to set off this little sequence of activity. But the 4.3, obviously the largest quake so far in this sequence of activity, roughly about halfway or so between various magnitudes here. Bunch of threes, bunch of twos in there as well. The latest, a 1.8 in this mix within the last hour, it looks like. This area, obviously a ways away from the plate boundary. Nevada is no doubt earthquake country. You can see some large earthquake activity out here at various fault systems. This specific area, though, around the Walker Lake area, I pulled up historical data here. This is what USGS has on their site. Numerous earthquakes around the area, including looks like a 5.0 a little bit further south here back in 1964. A couple fives out here. This one a little bit closer to today's swarm, 1942 for a 5.0. But specifically around this area where we're seeing this ongoing earthquake activity today, back in 1995 we had a 4.5. So hard to say, if something bigger might be brewing out here. Many of these fault systems are obviously very old and slow at accumulating slip rate out here. So historically there could have been some big earthquakes out here thousands of years ago, and now we're just coming up to that point where we may see some larger scale activity out here due to the time that has passed, because that's a little bit of interesting earthquake activity out here, and the sequence is what I like to follow. Say if there was a 4.3 and then a couple other aftershocks following that main quake, that'd be normal, right, in terms of the earthquake sequence and aftershock activity. But this isn't like that. It's started off here with a 3. And I think, if I remember right, this area has seen a little bit of activity in the past here. Let me show you guys. Got about 32 earthquakes of this in this area. And as you can see, we can even go back the last 30 days here. That doesn't really do too much activity. Actually, it does none. So all this activity stirred up here in the last 7 days. And it started off, I guess, with a 2-pointer. But again, the sequence of activity taking place out here is not typical when it comes to the main quake and then the aftershock sequence. This is just a bunch of earthquake activity swarming, with the magnitudes getting a little bit stronger here this morning. About 8 o'clock or so, we've seen an uptick, including that 4.3. So we'll watch this area. Historical data doesn't really tell us a lot about this specific area in terms of larger scale potential. But I'm sure it's out here, right? There's fault systems all over. There's mountain ridges, and like I say, it takes maybe a couple thousand years to build up enough steam out here on some of these slower slip rate faults to produce a big earthquake. So we'll continue to watch this area, not around a highly populated area. We got Hawthorne down here off of the 95, just to the southwest here, about 10 miles. I've been down here numerous times, and honestly, I don't mind the drive here. I prefer to take this area through Nevada when I'm coming home instead of driving through Southern California. See, if I was coming from Texas, I prefer the less traveled roads, and a lot of people don't like the desert. I like it. It's got its own beauty. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this area as movement is on the uptick out there. And of course, the plate boundary off here to the west, that's a lot of, with all the activity we've seen here recently, Southern California has seen a lot of uptick. Nevada has seen that uptick here recently down across Las Vegas, and we're starting to fill in across various areas here. That's a sign that we got to watch the plate boundary, because if you think about it, that's where most of the pressurization is going on here across the two plates. We've got these other secondary fault systems filling in prior to the plate boundary, and then on the other side of the plate boundary here, the San Andreas Fault. So we'll continue to keep an eye specifically on that area for some larger movement. There's a couple areas, as I mentioned here, around Ridgecrest, Bakersfield, where we're seeing that 5.2. A little bit of activity further down south here along the southern end of the Elsinore Fault. That's going to be this region right here. Got a small amount of earthquake activity coming in here. Looks like a couple ones and a 0.9, the most recent quake. So watch Southern Cal, Northern California, not so much popping up here for now. Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet as well. Out and about across the area. Let me give a quick glance here at Yellowstone. We'll cover Iceland here towards the end of this video. Still seeing that eruption out there. Earthquake activity, not a whole lot happening out here. Well, let's see what we got here. This somewhat looks like earthquake activity. Let's see, you guys see that? It looks like earthquake activity. Let me see here, because we got to compare the two charts here, which a lot of these signals match up to one another on distant stations. So that tells me right there that there is some earthquake activity. Specifically in this area, looks like around the Hebgen Lake Estates. This area has seen a big earthquake back a number of years ago, a 7-pointer, if I remember right. That's outside the Yellowstone caldera. So not only do we have the hot spot out here on the north, underneath the North American plate, but we also have numerous fault systems that run through the area. Numerous mountain ranges, and you can see these ridges here indicating strain up against this area. And all this is sitting up against the North American craton, which is the center mass here of the North American plate. So it's a land mass here that has relatively been stable in terms of warping and ridging and mountain ranges being built up. So this is a solid chunk of the North American plate, while everything around it moves and warps and gets all these mountain ranges building up around it. You can actually see it out here. The center portion of the North American craton extends down within that section here. And, of course, these ridges all brushing up against it. So we got the hot spot here, ridging going on for the earthquake activity and mountain ranges. But, let's get back to the Yellowstone activity. A 0.4 being recorded. Now, the 0.4 is going to be extremely small. We're probably going to even see that on the graph here. But they're not covering the earthquake activity that is popping up here on these graphs. I'm pretty certain those are not thunderstorms there, because the individual readings here indicate earthquake activity sequence, and there's probably a good 10 of them or so. Looking at the graph, those are going to be bigger than a 1-pointer, more than likely close to a 2-pointer or so, maybe low-grade 2 magnitude, because that activity showed up here. Maple Creek, Denny Creek, West Boundary, a little bit here in Madison River as well. And then, of course, as you go further eastward, it's not really being picked up all that much, but definitely got some activity out here. Northwestern area of Yellowstone. The caldera itself, Yellowstone caldera, is in the black line here, the black outline. Lake Yellowstone there in the blue. So this looks like it could be regional stress out here to the west of the supervolcano there. And again, a handful, about 10 earthquakes or so of what looks to be around magnitude 2. A couple 2s in there, low-grade 2s, and some smaller quakes there in the background. So we'll see. It's Friday. It's not the weekend yet. I'm really surprised USGS hasn't focused on that activity. All right, let's back out of here real quick, see what we got. Oil fields out here in Texas still getting hit a little bit, although most of this is from yesterday, and including a couple 3s out there, 3.9 in the mix around Pecos, Texas, out there in the oil fields. And some further movement out here around the Permian Basin area, where there's hundreds and thousands of oil fields. I don't know how many there are. It's way up there. Goodness. That's all you see when you drive around there, including from the air. If you travel through commercial airline, that is very, very visible out there. Eastern portion of the country here, pretty quiet. Let's take a look here at Hawaii, because there's a lot going on underneath this area. We did see a 4.7 or 4 point, what was that? 4.7 earthquake here yesterday underneath this area, about 4 miles deep, and a number of earthquakes following that event. Actually, there's probably more than that, and it's some not really deep activity, but it's not just below the surface either. It looks like about 2 miles, 3 miles below the surface. And definitely some interesting activity. I don't think it's not surface fault activity. This is more to do with maybe some magma areas further down below. Hard to say exactly, but right now focused up here across the upper East Rift Zone, where we've seen our most recent intrusion take place here. We've seen a number of magma intrusions here recently from the summit off into about this area right here, where it's still just it's down there as far as the magma accumulation goes, but there's not quite enough pressure to break through here and create a fissure event or further escalation of magma somewhere else. Let's take a look here at the latest chart here from the USGS in regards to Kilauea Volcano. I can't believe it's Friday. Awesome. It's perfect weather, upper 70s. Goodness. Definitely puts me in the mood to be outside and do some yard work. So yellow is the advisory. Yellow and advisory is the current volcano status here. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and see what we got for the latest update. By the way, this was put out yesterday, so really nothing new here. I just chatted about the earthquake activity here and the ground deformation recently. Let's check out those graphs ourselves, since nothing has been updated yet. Here's a tilt meter station. There's our most recent intrusion event there. Went up, down in certain areas, but that's comparable to what we had seen last month when we had another intrusion in this area. So that's localized to this region up here of the upper East Rift Zone. The summit area is there's that 4.7 showed up there on the tilt meter. So there was a huge spike in the ground, indicating some vertical displacement temporarily while that 4.7 struck. The overall trend here, here's the past week. Notice that magma intrusion, loss of magma. This is vertical displacement here at the summit. That loss here, that drop in the graph, indicates magma on the move from the summit up to the over to the upper East Rift Zone, middle East Rift Zone. And that's our second one here in the last month or so. The previous one was back in the end of July. Doesn't quite go back to where it began, but it was elevated. It was roughly about up in here, this level. Lost volume of magma. It went down. Now we're coming back up. And here's our most recent intrusion from the summit off to the upper East Rift Zone. So we're getting a recharging of the area below, but again, not quite enough accumulation yet to see an eruption or a further escalation of some magma intrusion somewhere else. It's just right about here for now. So nothing new in terms of that volcano. Let's check out the webcams here, just get a little visual, see if we got anything different going on there up at the lava lake area. A little bit slow today there, USGS. What's going on here? Hello. Okay. Oh, here's the summit area. A little bit of volcanic gases there seeping through the edges, like it's been doing for quite a while. Nothing new here. So it's one of those things here where we have to just keep an eye on it and then go from there. Australia, of course, seeing that 4.8 yesterday, shaking things up outside of Sydney. Pretty a fairly decent earthquake out there. Nothing big out in New Zealand yet. Still expecting some potential movement out here. It sits along the plate boundary here, and we've seen activity inland here, intraplate earthquakes. Activity all north here as well. Excuse me. Thought I heard something flying around here in the computer room. A little scary. Haven't had any ghost activity recently. That's always a good thing. So a little bit of earthquake activity down across the plate boundary, some threes, but really this has not adjusted accordingly compared to all the other plates, all the other plate sections around New Zealand. So Continue to keep an eye on New Zealand area. Eventually that's going to fill in a larger fashion. Clustering going on today across Philippines southward in our typical crunch zone, where we're seeing a little bit of activity from yesterday and today, and very visible here on the map as well from the USGS. Quite a few 4s in there, some 5s from yesterday. Overall pattern of increasing crunching going on here across this area. This is where all the plates tend to meet and subduct, and there's a whole, it's always active out there. That's all I can say about that. It's always seen earthquake activity. Over here across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, got some movement here from last night. One earthquake after midnight, my time here, 4.9. Things a little bit quieter across this area for now. But, broader scale activity across the entire Pacific is on the uptick, it looks like, around many different regions. Middle America Trench seeing quite a few 4s and 3s down here as well. South America, just a handful of quakes there. 2s and a couple other 4s from yesterday. The Atlantic Ocean, nothing going on. There's a couple 5s there from yesterday. I believe those are from yesterday. Where are we? Down here. There's 2 earthquakes there, 5.5 and a 5.5 within minutes of each other here. It's still interesting to see, earthquake sequences there follow one another. It just goes to show you how, there's kind of a pattern out here that these plates tend to shift to. And in general, you can follow that pattern due to the general direction of the plate movement. Most of the strain will follow in that pattern. But with this activity out here, it's it's kind of a fracture zone. Maybe there's a little bit of divergent boundary activity out there as well, indicating a rift separation here of the seafloor, slowly, obviously, over time. And most of the time when we see this, things tend to kick up north into the Mediterranean area. And right now, it doesn't look like things are stirring up out here. Just a couple 2s, 3s. Well, there's a little bit of swarming going on out there in the eastern Turkey area, it looks like. Right about here across the plate boundary. Nothing showing up on the USGS map, but we'll watch that area as well. The Atlantic Ocean, aside from that, pretty quiet. Let's go check out Iceland here, because I know we got the ongoing eruption. Last night, we had a lot of big-time earthquake activity during the eruption here, and normally that should be the other way around. Once we get breakage through here to the surface, in terms of fissure activity, that free flow of magma normally will calm down in terms of the earthquake activity that was produced here. But we've seen a large amount of earthquake activity following the eruption itself, and it was mainly to the north here. The eruption activity is down south here, about a 3-kilometer long fissure event east of Slingerfell here, but we've seen a broad amount of earthquake activity north here. So let's go real quick. We'll check out the live view here, see what we got there at the surface levels with the ongoing eruption. A lot less active than yesterday. A couple different regions, it looks like that's still active. Let's go over here and see what we have. Nighttime's the best time to check this out. Yeah, last night this was all lit up. About a 3-kilometer long fissure event. Looks like there's only a couple different active regions out here. That's actually, if it dies down completely like that, that is a very short-lived eruption. Let's go see what's going on here and see if there's any updates on this activity from the Icelandic Meteorological Office here. This update was put out today, fairly recent. The power of the eruption has decreased significantly since yesterday. Just as I was pointing out, this is a view from when it first began. Look at that. Just a line of fire and lava out there from a about a 4-kilometer long fissure event. And of course, this area has seen a tremendous amount of inflation going on underneath this area, more so than what we had seen before. And that includes the previous eruptions. The main activity is limited to 2 areas. The most active is on the crack that opened last night, the fissure that opened last night. Yeah. No activity south of the Stora Stagafell area. There's a another view, it looks like, but it looks like it's calmed down since even that aerial was taken. The activity seems to be shrinking in limited areas, as has been seen in previous eruptions. Here's the risk assessment. Obviously, there's that new fissure event taking place out there across this area. I'll pull this up real quick so you guys can see the region of interest. Here's the Slingerfell area. This is kind of where the main earthquake activity was happening last night. So it does look like, you know, potentially here coming up in the future, we could see some further eruptions go northward. I was a little concerned that we'd see something go south here towards Grindavik due to the elevated earthquake activity here recently. But that could just be due to all the swelling and inflation going on over a broader area. But obviously the risk assessment includes this area around the main fissure event here in the dotted line. And it's dying down right now. But I'll really be surprised, though, if it's short-lived like this. Most of the eruptions linger on for a little bit. Obviously, after dying down, you know, after shooting out so much volume of magma, it does die down, but it continues for a little while afterwards. All right, let's see here. There's the fissure event again in this area. Earthquake activity dying down. All right, so we'll just continue to watch it. There's a lot going on out here across the world for sure. Southern California is starting to light up here since I just popped on here for the update. Rancho Cucamonga area 1.3 and a 1.5. That's what I'm saying. All this inland activity here is a good sign of pressurization out here against the plate boundary. This is the two main plates out here. You got the Pacific plate and the North American plate out here. And this is only a little segment of it, right? A little segment of this, the entire length of the plate boundaries out here. And this area has been building up a lot of stress accumulation over a span of about 300 years or so, is what is stated when the last rupture of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault happened. So this area can see an 8.1. That's what many geologists, seismologists, scientists, and whatnot are throwing out. And I believe that's highly possible with the amount of strain that's built up out here. So I don't know how much longer it can handle. So we got to pay attention to all these little patterns of earthquake activity around this area. You know, that's a key indicator to watch the main plate boundary. And that's a southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. All right, let's see what else we got out here. Space weather activity, anything popping out there on the sun? Starting to pop up here a little bit with some, see that crackling going on here? We're sizzling here with almost consistent M-flare activity. Number of low-grade M-flares here overnight, so let's see where that's coming from. There's one region here that's currently flaring. That could be the source of some of the activity. Let's see which sunspot is at 3,800. One of the newer named ones. Yeah, wow, look how fast that's grown. From last night here, notice a lack of, the color is deeply defined here on 3,800 till right now our most recent imagery. A lot of color is starting to pop up here, indicating some rapid complexity going on with that magnetic core that 3,800 harbors. So got to watch that one. That one looks like a newer sunspot getting geared up to maybe produce some stronger flares here very soon. This area over here as well, getting a little bit more dynamic. Couple different regions out here, I would say, right? But right now, the main area, from what I can see, is this rapid development in 3,800 there. Going to give us a shot of some stronger flares, I feel. Right now, the overall threat has dropped a little bit there to 10% chance for X-flare. M-flare at 55, C-flare around 99% chance or so. No major roars in the forecast, folks. We'll be lucky if we see anything here, unless we get any major CME activity Earth-directed. No major auroras there as noted. As far as severe weather goes across the states here, limited to extreme, looks like northwest Montana here. No chance of tornado activity. Looks like wind and, well, a little bit of hail threat, but mainly a wind threat up here today. We do have a low pressure system here that's going to be coming in to the western United States. Let me make this a little bit smaller so to fit in. There's a low pressure out here. You can see the area just off the western side here of Oregon, and that is going to spin up some showers, thunderstorms, and even some snow up into the extreme higher elevation, probably well above 7,000, 8,000 feet there. Notice that snow about South Lake Tahoe southward. But we're going to get some rain here in the valley. We're expecting roughly about 1/4 of an inch of rain. So that is... it's quite rare to get rain here from a cold low-pressure system in August like that. This is our time when we normally get 100-degree temperature days here in California. So I'm looking forward to some cooler weather. It's supposed to be upper 70s here today and tomorrow, warming back up a little bit on Sunday. But let me check out the rainfall accumulation here, see what windy map is forecasting. Yeah, it's about Monday here. This map, it's an ECMWF map, is showing not a whole lot, just a couple sprinkles here outside of Chico. The HRR model is doesn't look like it's working. Not for sure what's going on there. No data. GFS model showing a little bit out here, maybe a little bit more aggressive for rainfall. The NAM model, not so much. So I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a decent low pressure system out here that's spinning up and creating some cooler conditions and possible thunderstorms out here, along with some rain chances. So we'll take it. We definitely need some cooler weather out here, and maybe some rain to help alleviate any fire concerns here. It's quite rare to see this type of system out here in August. Anyway, folks, I'm going to jump off here and probably make it an outside day. I got a few things I need to catch up on just in case we get some rain. And I'm just going to be outside enjoying the much, much cooler temperatures here for Northern California. So if you're out here like me, enjoy it. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later. I know we got this tropical system here heading towards Hawaii. It looks like it's rapidly dying, being squashed here by the massive high pressure centered over the roughly over the eastern Pacific out here. But we'll check back in on that a little bit later on this evening, see if Hawaii is going to get any tropical systems. A number of them out here in the eastern Pacific headed off in this general direction. Have a good day, folks. Keep an eye here on the West Coast, and we'll catch you guys back out here tonight. Unless something major happens between then. Have a good day and stay safe.